All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. Should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen, to the right of the video if you're on a larger screen. All right, so see if we got any questions in there. Looks like we got one question there. So we'll actually start with a question that I had from a student that I thought that I would share with you guys because I thought it was interesting. So this is from Lonnie, and Lonnie says, the video Clay posted on email to members on 116 did an excellent job of explaining how to create lag early in the downswing instead of early in the backswing. It also explained why downswing lag generation created more swing contact speed and reduced the over-the-top tendencies to so many of us struggle to eliminate from the swing. So goes on to say, one thing I noticed in the video of Clay's swing was that his wide takeaway and late hand set in the early downswing appeared to show his right elbow above his left forearm in the face-on view at the top of the swing, and that same right elbow well below his left forearm after the hands are set and the lag is created. I'm guessing this means that the right elbow folds inward during the move. Is my guess correct? So let's unpack kind of what Lonnie's talking about here a little bit. So if you haven't seen the video, basically the video is all about using the momentum of the club, right? So what I see a lot of students do is, in an effort to try to get this club to lag behind, what they'll do is they'll kind of get that club to lag behind their hands early in the backswing. They'll get in this position at the top, and then the moment that we kind of reach that maximum lag position, right, that's the moment that we're going to want to release it, right? So if we're creating that all the way to the top, we're going to release it from the top. And also, if we're creating that all the way to the top, we're not going to have the club head is not going to have as much momentum going in this direction to help you to create lag in the downswing, right? So that's why we predicate, or we like you to have a wide takeaway, like we talk about in the power turn course, because that helps you to create less, or it helps you to create more momentum of the club head in the backswing to help you to create that lag, right? So you can see how if I the difference is hinging early and then casting it versus late hinge, create the lag. Right now I'm getting my most amount of hinge here later in the swing, and then I'm going to release it from there. So basically what Lonnie is asking, or what he noticed in the video, is that it looks like Clay's swing or Clay's elbow is kind of on this side of his arm, and then in the downswing it goes under his arm. And he's asking, is that the right arm folding in the downswing? So what we have to be careful of is when we're looking at video, we're the perspective can make us kind of see things that aren't really happening. So the maximum bend of the trail arm, that's happening at the top of the swing. It doesn't bend more in the downswing. It's happening at the top of the swing, right? And typically it's going to be about 90 degrees, somewhere in that area is how much that arm is bending. Now, it may look like more, but again, this is just the perspective of the camera, right? If I go like this, it's very clear that that's about 90 degrees, right? That looks like 90 degrees. But if I do that same thing and I go here now, right, if I turn to the top and I'm like this, that looks like a lot less than 90 degrees, doesn't it? But it's not. It's still 90 degrees. So we have to be careful of what we're looking at because of the perspective of what's going on. So we're going to reach our maximum bend at the top of the swing, and then it's going to slowly start to unbend. Really what Clay's doing is he's lowering his arm down, right? So he's at the top, and then it's lowering down. So basically the motion of the right arm in the backswing would be this. And I'll show you it from the down the line perspective as well. But If you're looking from face on, if I don't rotate or anything, I'm just moving my arm like it would be in the swing. It's just this, right? So I'm just kind of putting my right arm kind of stays in front of me a little bit. It's not going like this, right? It's just kind of going up. So here's the address, right? Here's address. And then it goes up and folds like that, right? And it's going to about 90-degree bend, right? And then my arm kind of moves away from me a little bit, moves away from my chest. So this would be abduction, right? Where I'm going like this. Adduction would be where I'm moving my arm toward my chest. Abduction would be away from my chest. So here it's moving. It moves a little bit that way, right? And then my arm raises, right? And then it folds a little bit, right? So that's the top of the swing. So if you look at it from this way, my right arm from address basically goes like this. That's the top of the swing, right? Now, if I add the turn to that, right, there's the top of the swing, right? So if I do that same thing, I'll do it with my lead arm on the club. There's the top of the swing. That's what play looks like at the top of the swing, right? You look at it from this angle, it's here. That's the top of the swing, right? Now, when I start that's the maximum bend in my arm. I'm not going to do that in the downswing. The reason why we wouldn't do that, because that would actually make you cast the club, right? What we want to understand is that this club head wants to line up with the direction that you pull it, right? So if I have the club like this and I yank the club that way, the club head wants to line up with that, right? So if I'm at the top like this, and then I fold my arm in, that club, because I'm pulling the club this way, the club is going to want to release from there. So that would actually make you cast. If you're having the feeling of pulling your arms in and folding your arms down like this, that's going to make the club cast. We actually want to have the feeling, I would try to, if you're someone who struggles with creating lag, I would actually have the feeling that your hands are going out away from you, right? Because that's going to create lag. If I'm here, right, and then I feel the arms going out away from me, that's going to help me to create lag, right? So I'd almost feel wider with my hands, like my hands are going away from the target, almost like I'm pulling a quiver or I'm pulling an arrow out of the quiver, right? That's almost what I want to feel like with the lag. So I'm here, my arm's got about 90 degrees of bend in it, and then it's going to lower and it's going to start to adduct, so move toward my chest, and it's going to lower as I come down, right? So that's basically the motion of the arm. And everyone who's probably watching this already knows how to do this motion, right? It's basically throwing a ball. If you were to throw a ball or skip a rock across the water, I imagine most of you have tried to skip a rock across the water. You've all done this motion. You've all brought your arm up here and then rotated your body, lowered your arm, moved your arm in, and then let it go. That's what's happening in the golf swing. That's what's happening in a powerful, athletic golf swing. If you were to skip a rock across the water, what you wouldn't do is you wouldn't go here, fold your arm, bend your arm more, and then let it go. Because if you bring your arm into your body, or if you fold your arm toward you like this, well, it's just not going to be very powerful if you do that, right? I want it to be more out away from my body, and then I let it go, right? So that's kind of the motion of the arm that's going on. So it's not folding down. It's just that his arm works like this a little bit, and then it works down a little bit, and then it actually straightens out a little bit as he's coming down to that position. Now it may stay in that bent position more to here and then start to straighten out, but it's not folding, right? It's not bending more as we're coming down in the position. When he gets here, it's still about 90 degrees. It's still about 90 degrees. It's probably a little bit more than that. It's probably gone from 90 degrees to a little bit more than 90 degrees, and then it lets go, right? So that's kind of the motion of that trail arm happening in the downswing. So let me know if anybody has any more questions about that. All right, let's keep moving here. So we had one question in here from Gary P. Says, I recently learned about linear rotation and angular rotation. In order to get angular rotation, you have to break your swing Do you know how to achieve maximum swing speed while doing both of these things? You don't have to try to do it. Your body's going to reach its end range of motion. You don't need to try to decelerate your body. It will happen on its own. We can't keep spinning around, like a top. We can't keep doing it, right? Because we reach our end ranges of motion of our body is already our hands are already decelerating by this point in the swing. They're already decelerating. This is about the maximum speed your hands are going to get, and then they're going to be decelerating from there. So you don't need to try to do it. It's going to happen regardless. So you don't have to try to do that. If you're looking to create the most amount of club head speed that you can, what I'd recommend doing is working through our 20-minute distance fix. That goes through everything that you need to do in there to get club head speed. So the first thing you need to do is create space, right? So I need to get a good turn to create space. If I only bring the club up to here, it's going to be hard to create speed, right? I need to get a good turn so that way I can create space, right? So that's probably the number one thing. Another way to create space is to raise your arms, right? As I talked about earlier, the top of the swing, we want it to be right here, right? That's where the top of the swing is. If I were to add the turn in with that, right? So there, I add the turn in with that. I got a good amount of height here and a good amount of space to create the club. If I'm only bringing my arm up to here, right? Or, a lot of people are trying to stay connected, right? If I'm trying to create power, if I stay connected, I can only bring my arm up to here, right? That's not going to be very powerful. If I add the turn to that, right, this is not going to be very powerful if I'm trying to stay connected. I need to raise my arms up. I like to actually see about a 90-degree angle between your arm and your body as well, and then a 90-degree angle in the arm. That's generally what I like to see. We'll talk about something called the 90-90-90 position. So basically what that is that's 90 degrees up, right? And then 90-degree bend. And then it's not actually 90 degrees, but the wrist is bent back. It's not really, it's more like 60 degrees, but that's kind of what I'm talking about there. So that gets, if we do that, that gets the club in a very powerful position. So you see I've raised it up, I've bent it a little bit, and I've got my wrist bent back. The reason why I want to have my wrist bent back is it gets that club face in a good position. If it's like this, that club face is open, and I'm going to tend to kind of just throw with my arms to get the club face closed, right? So we need to create space. That's going to come from raising my arms, and that's going to come from turning my body, right? So you can think of the raising of the arms as the vertical components to create space, and you can think of the rotation of my body as the horizontal components that create space, right? So that's number one. Number two is to sequence that, right? So I need to be putting force into the ground at the right times, and I need to be putting a lot of force into the ground to be able to power my body, right? To be able to do something with that space that I've created, right? So that's what we do in the step drill, the sumo step drill of the 20-minute Shaolin fix, right? That's what we do in the grip ripper drill. That's what we do in the half backswing full follow through drill. That's what we do in the boomerang drill, where we're creating lag. So it's lagging the club, it's putting force into the ground, it's getting that all sequenced together to help you to create speed. So that's really what I would recommend doing if you're looking to create club head speed in the golf swing. And then within that 20-minute distance fix, we also have what we call the big hitters mindset videos. You have to have the correct mindset to create speed. We actually, we didn't have office hours yesterday and the day before because we had a distance clinic. We had, several people come in to try to get some more club head speed and get some more distance. And it's very clear that not a lot of people have the right mindset to create speed. You have to have the right mindset. When you're creating speed is a different kind of golf training than any other training that you do, right? It's not accuracy training, right? Almost all training that we do is basically accuracy training, controlling things, right? Whereas in speed training, we actually want to get out of control, right? To really train the correct way, we actually want to be out of control and feel out of our comfort zone. And it's not like it's not the swing that you're taking to the golf course, but if we can raise up the speed with your speed training swing, your golf course swing is going to swing speed is going to go up too. So that's a big part of it that a lot of people don't realize. So that's what definitely something that I recommend doing. So if you want to check out that 20-minute distance fix, click the instruction tab, then click the 20-minute distance fix. You don't have to know any fancy terms like, angular acceleration or rotation or linear rotation or anything like that. It's if you just follow that program, you will and do what it talks about and have the right mindset, you will gain club head speed. So that's why I recommend checking out. All right. So John M says, with regard to what you just described about the right arm at transition, when does the left lead arm start to collapse toward the chest? I have heard that the angle between your lead arm and your chest decreases toward impact. I'm just curious when that happens. It does. It actually doesn't decrease toward impact. It actually increases. So at address. So basically, if we're talking about adduction and abduction, so what that is, what you're talking about, your arm working away from and toward your chest, right? So adduction is your arm working toward your chest. The easy way to remember that is, or the way that I remember it, is you're thinking of adding your arm to your chest, right? And then abduction, abduction, is your arm working away from your chest, right? So at address, we're like this, right? Your arm probably roughly has a little less than a 90-degree angle to your chest, right? If we're just saying like if we're putting a line through the center of our sternum here, right? If we're putting a rod through there, your arm is a little less than 90 degrees to that, right? When you go up to the top, your arm is going to move in a little bit, right? It's going to move in a little bit. Now, in some players, it moves in a lot. Some players it doesn't, right? But most of the best players, it doesn't move in a ton. I was actually just had to send a video to a student who has a lot of adduction of his arm throughout the swing. And you know who else used to do that was Jim Furyk. Jim Furyk had a lot. He really got his arm across his chest. Well, he didn't turn his body very much, so it was really the only way that he could create depth would be to do that. He's also, a pretty, he's got the physical build to be able to do that. Personally, myself, I would not be able to, adduct my arm across my chest as much as he does because my upper arm is bigger and my chest is bigger, right? And I also probably don't have the shoulder flexibility that he does either. You add all those together, and I'm not going to be able to create the angle across my chest like he does. But the student that I'm working with he's not quite as tall as Jim Furyk is, but the build wise, it's not that much different. He's got the physical ability to do that. Well, the disadvantage to that of really doing that is you're not putting your arms in a very powerful position. If I get my arms too far back behind me like this, so if I'm too adducted, that's going to put my trail arm in a position like this, and it's going to be very, very difficult for me to really create a lot of power. I really have to control my pivot through the shot, and that's exactly what Jim Furyk did. Jim Furyk was really, really good he was physically capable of pivoting. Jim Furyk is, I don't know how open he is at impact, but he's got to be about the most open guy at impact there is. He's also not the longest hitter. So it's hard to create a lot of power from there. So he's physically capable of making a good pivot. And then he was very good at controlling it, right? Which allowed him to be a very good ball striker. He's won a lot of money on tour and owns the record for the lowest round on tour, like a 58, I think it is, right? So it can work it can work. It's just not the most powerful thing in the world. So if I was Jim Furyk's coach, which I think Jim Furyk's coach has been his dad his whole life, um, obviously it works really well for him. But if Jim Furyk came to me and said, "Hey, I want to hit the ball farther," I would say you need to turn more and get your arms in a more powerful position, or you just need to make a lot of swings where you're just swinging as hard as you can. And that's why I'm guessing he's probably done a lot of that, to be honest, if I had to guess, where he swung hard to try to create speed. So that being said, when you look at tour players, basically what's happening with the lead arm, right? It's a little less than 90 to the chest here. We go up to the top, it's going to move in a little bit. So the top of the swing would look like that. And then in the transition, it would go a little bit more. But as we come down to the ball, it's actually going to come off the chest a little bit, right? Your arm is going to adduct. Now, if you're someone who doesn't rotate very well, right? Someone who kind of stalls your body and really the arm comes off of your chest too much, right? Because you're stalling your body. So you're kind of going like this, right? If you're kind of chicken winging through contact, you have too much abduction, right? It can actually be a good feeling to feel the chest move into the arm as you're going into impact. The reality is that that's not what's happening, but that can be a good feeling. For most players, that's not what's happening. For Jim Furyk, for my student, that is what's happening, but you're going to be all body driven, right? And you don't want to be for speed and power. Most people aren't physically capable of being as body driven as those two guys are. It's just not like if I wanted to have a almost 100% body driven swing, I would not be physically capable of doing it. Personally, myself, I need to have a mix of the arms and the body in there. So, and to be honest, that's the most powerful way to swing the golf club. Tiger, Adam Scott, these players, the longest players in the world, do not have body driven golf swings. They're using their arms and their body. They're meshing them together beautifully, which allows them to be accurate and stuff like that. So that's not going to be shutting your arm into your chest as you're coming into contact. That's going to be moving your arm off of your chest. But if you're someone who moves their arm off your chest too much, it can be beneficial for you to feel like you're moving into your arm as you're coming into contact. Because that's a lot of what golf is. Golf is a game of adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. If you're doing something like stalling your body and moving chicken wing, moving your arm off your body too much, then a good feel for you would be the opposite. You may need to actually feel like you're doing this. So it's what I call the fault, feel, real approach. The fault is arm moving off the body too much, chest not opening up. You can see the angle between my chest and my arm as far as moving off my body. It's probably like 120 degrees if I'm in this position, right? And I may want to feel like I'm trying to create a 0 degree angle between my chest and my arm. That may be the feel that I'm having, but the reality is that you're going to be moving the arm off of the chest. That's more than likely going to be the reality. So yeah, it's address, a little less than 90. We go up to the top. Typically, that's going to lessen, right? Not with all players, but most players, that's going to lessen. You're going to be adducting your arm. And then in the transition, you may slightly adduct your arm more. And then when you come down to impact, that arm will abduct, and then completely adduct as we come around continue to adduct as you come around to the full finish. But that's literally what's happening. But what you may need to feel to get a good result may be a little bit different. All right, let's keep going here. So JRB says, I have been setting my wrists early in my backswing, causing a flat takeaway. Just discovered in video to overcome this. I'm keeping the shaft pointing well inside the ball, nearly vertical until lead arm parallel, then elevate at the top of the backswing. This feels a lot like an over-the-top preparation. Can you help me to get into the proper position at the top? Yeah. So if it sounds like what you're doing is you're bringing your lead arm too far across your body, right? So if I go too far across my body and I'm like this, right, I'm going to tend to come over the top. So I would try to feel like your arm is going more up as you go up to the top. It's going more up and not so much into your chest, but going more up and above your shoulders, right? So as opposed to, it sounds like what you're describing is this, right? And then that's going to be an over the top move. And what you want to do is more this, right? Where my arms are going up and I'm turning with it. And now I have room and space to swing that club from the inside. Outside of that, I would need to see your swing, but an easy way to kind of help you to get up to the top is I would move your lead arm and I would put it kind of, actually the easiest way to do it would be to go with your right arm first. So your trail arm, I bend it 90 degrees, right? And I would raise it to where it's about 90 degrees with your body here, right? So 90-90 position, right? I want you to bend your wrist back, right? And then I want you to open it just a little bit, right? So instead of going straight in front of you, I want you to open it just a little bit. Then I want you to take your lead arm and then go straight to that. That's the top of the swing, right? So if I do that and I hold a club, I stand straight up, I bend my arm 90 degrees, right? And then I raise it 90 degrees, and then I bend my wrist back, I hinge it back, and then open it just a little bit. That's the top of the swing. I put my lead arm on there, right? And then now I do that with a turn. Now I'm in a good position, right? That's where I want to be. I think the debilitating problem that I tend to see happen with a lot of golfers is that if we bend and fold our arms and bring our arms more across our body, it does make our swing longer. But what we really need to do is not do that, but to make our swing longer, we just need to turn more. So what I see a lot of golfers do is they don't turn very much, right? So they may get less than a 90-degree turn, and then what they'll do is they'll really bend their arms, right, to try to get anywhere near parallel, right? So and hinge their wrist to try to get here. That does make the swing longer, but the problem is it's hard to make a very consistent downswing from there. What I'd rather see players do is have these, those positions that I talked about. So raise the arm 90 degrees, 90-degree bend, and have the arm structure, have it be a little bit wider, right? But then we turn with it. Now I'm in a much more powerful position, right? Now I can get everything to work, in the correct way. If I were to throw a ball, I wouldn't get my arm way back here like this and bend my arm a ton. This would not be a very powerful position. I would cock it back about like this. That would be a powerful position. And then I would bring my arm in front and let it go, right? That's how I would throw a ball. I would go here. That's the same thing I want to do in the golf swing, as if I'm throwing a ball, right? So this is the throw a ball position, right? It's the same kind of thing. And that's something that I think everybody can do. So that's what I would recommend doing. All right, let's keep going. So Paul F says, wanted to ask about the lead arm on the follow through. My arm seems to go more like a chicken wing after hitting the ball. For some reason, I cannot keep the lead arm straight, but I do hit the ball fairly straight. So first I want to talk about, there's a difference. There are a lot of great players that have chicken wings, what you call a chicken wing. It's just a matter of if you're doing it in a good way or not. So there's a chicken wing that's actually powerful. Then there's a chicken wing that happens from not rotating your body. So the chicken wing that's powerful is the one that we see tour players like Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, Angel Cabrera, Lee Westwood. This is the kind of bend that we see in the arm in those players. If you look at all those players, they're nailing the top speed golf system. So what I would say is if you're nailing the top speed golf system, right, your spine is in a good position, you're getting a good turn, you're lagging the club, you're releasing it out in front, your body is rotating, all those things. If you're not stalling your rotation, then I would say I would not worry about this whatsoever. It's actually helping you to hit the golf ball better. The reason that it does is that if we're turning our shoulder up and around, and then we're also kind of bending our arm a little bit or bowing our arm as we're coming through, then you're actually going to be pulling up on the handle a little bit more. When you pull up on the handle more, it speeds up the club head. So it's actually a more powerful thing to do. So if you think about it this way, if I hold this club at a fixed point and then I just let it go, right, it has a certain amount of speed at the bottom, right? But now if I hold this club at this fixed point and then I raise it up as I drop it, now it moves faster, right? Well, that's the same kind of thing. If I'm coming down here and then I kind of pull up on it as it's coming through, as I'm rotating through, my shoulder is moving up and around, that's actually going to make it go a little bit faster. So if you're doing that, keep doing it, right? But if you're coming into contact and your body is just squaring up to the ball and you kind of look like this, right? You have this kind of look at contact. That is something, and you're early releasing the club, that is from your arms needing to fold because your body rotation has stalled, right? So you're coming in here, my body stops rotating. Well, my arm and my club got to get the ball some way, right? So what will happen is you'll fold up the arm to get that to happen. So if you're kind of looking like this through contact, that's going to be fairly inconsistent. You're not going to be as powerful. You're going to add loft. You're not going to compress the ball as much. You can hit straight shots. You know, what it takes to hit a straight shot is it takes ball first contact, center face contact, and your face and your path going toward the target, right? So the club face is what I mean by that, and then the path of the club needs to be toward the target. If those all things are lined up, you will hit a solid shot, right? Now, it may not be as compressed because you're adding loft if you're early releasing it, right? And you may have a tendency to have a hard time controlling the ground contact because that low point of the swing is going to be happening where the golf ball is, and that means it's going to be difficult to take a divot, right? That sort of thing. It's going to be difficult to hit it high enough on the face unless you have like a really good lie. So you can hit straight shots doing that. It is possible, right? But you're just going to be less consistent with it than a player that is, you know, more easily controlling the club through contact because they're rotating through the ball and, you know, stabilizing the club face and all those sorts of things. So if you are in that kind of situation, typically, you know, without seeing your swing, the only thing I can really tell you is to work through the top speed golf system and to work through the 20-minute shallowing fix, because somewhere within there, there's lots of reasons why you might stall your body, but somewhere within there is most likely going to cover it. Now, it could be that you're physically not capable of rotating some, but what I will say is if you're capable of rotating your backswing, you're more than likely capable of rotating in the downswing. It's just that you don't do it because for some reason. So if your swing kind of looks like this, where you don't really rotate your body at all and it's all arms, and you're physically not capable of turning your hips and things like that, that'd be a situation where you may not be physically capable of getting your body to open up as you come into contact. But if it's not the situation, if you're looking like this at the top of the swing and then you come like this to impact, that's not a physically incapable thing. There's something going on there. Your spine angles are off. You're casting the club in the start of the downswing. You're coming down steep. The face is open. You're bumping your hips out. There's something going on that's stalling your body rotation or making you stall your body rotation in an effort to hit it straight, right? So let me explain a scenario like that. If I was someone who was coming down steep, right? Well, if I were to really keep turning my body through, and I would just come down even more steep, right? So what I would do is I would kind of stall my body and throw my hips forward, and then I might have a chicken wing as I come through contact. So there's lots of reasons. I wish there was just one thing I could tell you that's just going to make you stop doing that. But without seeing your swing, there's no way for me to see the root cause of the issue. So, you know, what I'd recommend doing is really just working through the top speed golf system, working through the 20-minute shallowing fix course, because somewhere in there, you're going to find the root cause of the issue. And it could be, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that too. So that's what I'd be looking at. Now, if you'd like me to look at your swing and tell you, hey, this is the root cause, this is what we need to do to get you hitting the ball better and all that kind of stuff, then I'd recommend joining my online lessons. If you're interested in doing that, above the video, you should see a link there where you can either grab a spot if one's available, or you can join my waiting list. So if you're interested in doing that, feel free to do that as well. All right, let's keep going. So Paul F says, wanted to ask about the lead arm on the follow through. My arm seems to go. Actually, I think I just talked about that one. So next one is JRB. Says, I tend to smother my hybrids and fairway woods low left. I overcome this by what feels like a hang on to keep my face square with pretty good results. I may not be using my lower body properly. Sounds like you're coming down steep, right? So it sounds like you're probably coming down steep, and then you're saying hold on, and then you kind of stop your swing and early extend and try to hold the face open to keep from smothering it. If you're smother hooking it, you're probably going like this, right? So you just need to get the club shallowing out, swing from the inside, work through the 20-minute shallowing fix with those clubs. A lot of times when I see people, you're saying that this is happening with hybrids and fairway woods. If I had to guess, your ball position is probably way too far forward. I see it all the time. People get a hybrid or a fairway wood in their hand. They get those lower lofted clubs that you hit off the ground in their hand, and they push that ball position forward. And I think they do it because they think they should, or because they're trying to help the ball get up in the air. The problem is that actually makes it more difficult to get the ball up in the air because you're not hitting the ball in the center of the face. You're either hitting it low on the face, or when the ball positions more forward, we will tend to want to come down more steep, right, in order to make good ball first contact. So move that ball position. It just needs to be a little forward of the middle of the stance. Hit down and through the ball. Let the loft of the club do the work. If the club is still not getting up in the air, then I would maybe look at the shafts that you're using. They may be low launch shafts. I look at where you're striking the ball on the club face. If you hit it thin, it will go lower. Right? If you hit it on the lower part of the face, I make sure you're hitting it on the higher part of the face. Or you may not have enough club head speed to support hitting those lower lofted clubs. So that could be part of it as well. So getting more club head speed would make it easier to get those clubs up in the air. So all things that you can consider, but those would be the things I'd be looking at. Tom H says test. Well, I'm guessing he's just testing if this is working. Yep, it's all working. So if you got a question, Tom, feel free to ask it. We got 20 minutes or so left here. So keep them coming. So John M says, can you review the setup, stance, and ball position for a draw and a fade? So the stance itself, the wideness of the stance is basically going to be the same with either club. I like to see for an iron shot, I like to see the center of the ankles about shoulder width apart. For a driver, I like to see the inside of the ankles about shoulder width apart. So just a little bit wider with the driver makes it a little bit more stable and allows us to transfer pressure a little bit more easily. So the way I'm describing it here, as far as hitting a draw and a fade, this is how I do it. So this isn't necessarily the way that you're going to find the best, but this is the way that I find the best. And I hope it works well for you too. But basically, what we want to understand is that if I want to set this up, so let's say that this PVC pipe here, let's say that this is the target line, right? We're going to say that this alignment stick is my club path, right? So I'll set that down. So that's the direction my club head is moving through impact. And then we'll say that this putter here, the shaft of this putter, we're going to say that this is the club face. So if I'm hitting a draw and I want that draw to be on target, I want it to land on this PVC pipe extended all the way out to the target. I need my club face to be open to that target line, but I need it to be closed to the path of my club. That's going to allow the ball to start to the right of my target and then draw toward the target, right? So and it needs to be about halfway in between that. So if I'm putting numbers on it, right, then you could say if my path, let's say that my club path is 6 degrees into out. If I'm wanting to hit a draw onto the target, I would need my club face to be 3 degrees open. That means it's going to be 3 degrees open to the target, but then 3 degrees close to the path, right? That's going to get my ball to start a little bit right of the target and then draw back toward the target, right? So that's what I do. Now, when you set up, you're just setting up to do exactly that, right? That's all you're trying to do is make that happen. So it's not like I can tell you how to set it up and how to set up with your swing, and then you're going to automatically hit a draw. It doesn't work that way. You have to understand that this is what needs to happen at impact, and then however you're set up is just to make doing this possible, right? Because I can set up with my body, with my stance way out to the right and with a closed face, but then I can swing away over the top with an open face and I won't hit a draw, I'll hit a big slice. So it's all about setting up to make this happen, right? It's not just set up, push a button, you hit a draw. It's set up with the intent of getting your face a little bit close to your path and getting that all to start to the right of the target, right? So for me, if I'm a draw bias player, which means that I swing the club from the inside. That's my stock shot. So if I'm hitting a draw, I'm going to set up with my feet pretty square to my target line. And I'm going to swing from the inside, right? So I'm going to be swinging along the orange stick here, but my club face is going to be in the direction. And that, for me, I don't need to do anything different. That's my natural ball flight. That's what's going to create a draw. Now, if that's not what your natural ball flight is, then you may need to close your stance and close your face in order to make it happen, right? So, but that's the way that I set up for it. Now, as far as where the ball position is, a little bit forward to the middle of the stance. That's where I would do it. Now, if I was really trying to sling one, if I was really trying to get one to really hook, well, I would aim my body more to the right. I would shut down my face more, and I would actually swing more to the right and feel like my hands are rolling over. I would put the ball a little bit more back. If I was trying to snap hook it as much as I could, right? Those are all things that are going to help me to get it to hook even more. If I was trying to hook it more, I would need these to be even more out that way, right? So that's going to get my ball to really hook back. So I might set up my stance like this and really close my face down as I swing in the direction of that orange. I may put the ball a little bit farther in my stance to do that. Now, for me to hit a fade, it's not my natural shot shape, but I do hit fades sometimes. What needs to happen is I need to have the opposite, right? I need to have my face closed to the target, but open to the path of my club. So that's going to put the putter over here, right? And then that's going to put the stick over here. And again, to put numbers on it, I'm going to have my path going, X amount degrees out to in. And then my face is going to be whatever half that X amount is closed, right? Closed to the target, but open to the path, right? That's going to create a fade. That's going to create a ball flight that's going to start to the left and curve to the right, right? So for me to do that, what I do is I actually take the same swing relative to my toe line, right? I don't like to change the path of my club relative to my toe line for shots that I'm not trying to put a lot of curve on, right? And when I'm talking about my toe line, I'm talking about if you kind of look at the shadow from my club here, that's the toe line. I like to have the club, at club parallel to the ground. I like to have that a little bit inside the toe line. That's going to get my club working from the inside as I come into the ball, and that's going to help me produce that natural ball flight. So for me, if I'm trying to hit a fade, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my path relative to my feet, and then I'm just going to change where my feet are pointed. So I'm actually going to aim my body to the left, and then the other thing that I do is I just hold off the face. So instead of letting the club naturally kind of roll over for me, which gets the club face a little bit closed, I'm going to feel like I'm holding the face as I come through contact. I'm just going to be basically holding the face up the target line. That's what it feels like to me, is that I'm swinging along my feet, and then I'm holding that face a little bit open to my path here to get it to curve back, right? That's the way that I do it. Now, will that work for you? It's something you can try, but you have to figure out your own way that works. But you have to, if you can understand what has to happen at impact to create the ball flight that you're trying to create, then you got to come up with your own way of doing it, right? And that's the way that I do it. If I was trying to get a big old slice going, what I would do is I aim my body a lot to the left. I would actually weaken my grip to help me get the face more open. And then I would almost try to feel like I'm opening the face as I'm coming into contact. So instead of kind of holding the face, I'd feel like I'm kind of coming in like this, like I'm opening the face more, right? And I probably put the ball position a little bit more forward in my stance to allow me to hit a big slice, right? That's what I would do, in that situation. But I'm not in that situation, very, very often, right? And that's usually not a super high percentage shot for me. So I usually I'm not really going to attempt that very much. Now I may attempt it in practice just to get, good at being able to control my face and my path and all those things. But that's what you do. So that's the way that I do it. Now, another, if you're someone who's a fade bias player, someone who hits a lot of slices, and you're wanting to hit a draw, you're probably going to need to do the opposite. You're going to need to, when you're coming down, your path is probably out to in relative to your toe line. So if you want to hit a draw, you're probably going to need to aim your body way to the right and then really shut down. You're probably going to need to take a real strong grip and really feel like you're rolling your hands over through contact to get that face close, right? So there's no one way to do it to hit a draw or a fade. You can move the ball forward. If it helps you to hit a fade, you can move it back if it helps you hit a draw. I personally like to keep it pretty much the same if I'm just trying to put a few yard draw on it. If I'm trying to be more than that, if I'm trying to hit a big curving ball, I may move it a little bit in my stance, but not much. So that's how you would set it up, or that's how I set it up. But you, depending on what your biases are in your swing and what you do in your swing, you may be setting it up in a different way. But I hope you can just understand what it takes at impact for that to happen, and then you make your setup. You adjust your setup in a way that will allow you to do that. All right, let's keep going. So Jerry D says, I'm finally getting good lag, forward shaft lean, hips turn forward, and solid contact with the full swing. I now have an issue shanking pitch shots when taking only a half swing or less. I think it's that I'm not getting my wrists bowed as much, installing hips at impact with a short swing. Can you recommend any drills to improve consistency with pitch shots? Hard to say without seeing your swing, but if I had to guess, you're probably moving your hips toward the golf ball. So I would just try to feel like you are creating space, because when you move your hips for these short pitches, you're probably kind of going like this. So now I don't know for sure because I haven't seen your swing, but when you do that, that's the most common cause. When you do that, you kind of move the hosel out toward the golf ball, and that cause shank. So I would just try to feel like you're more in your heels. You're creating space for your hands to move through. The other thing I would do is I just try to hit the ball off the toe on those shorter pitch shots. Right now you're trying to hit the ball in the center of the face, but you're hitting it off the hosel, right? So try to hit the ball off the toe, and that will move the strike more to the center of the face. But look at yourself on video on those short pitch shots and see if you can tell if your hips are moving toward the ball. And if they are, I would try to feel like the hips are moving away from the ball to help you to create space on those shots. But without seeing your swing, there's no way for me to know the direct cause. So Tom H says, I wear trifocals and have problems keeping the ball in focus at the top of my backswing and beginning of the downswing. In other words, when I make my turn at the top of the swing, my shoulder bumps my chin slightly to the right and out of focus of mid-range correction. I've tried transition lenses 3X and can't tolerate them. Are there any changes to my glasses, changes to position? I hate to reduce my turn and sacrifice distance, but it's tough to lose focus at a critical part. So I think that's probably more of a conversation to have with your eye doctor. I don't know much about glasses. I wear single vision glasses, and when I play golf, I'm wearing sunglasses that don't have any rims on the bottom. So I don't really struggle with any of that, and I don't know what the options are as far as your glasses are concerned to help with that. The other option, the only option that I can think of would be to basically shorten your swing or you either need to get better at reconnecting with the golf ball when you lose sight of it, or shorten your swing so that way you don't, lose, any connection with the golf ball. You don't lose your eye on the ball. So you have to kind of weigh the good and the bad, right? Are you better at reconnecting with the ball and getting distance, or are you better off not losing contact with the ball? And do you make better contact when you make a shorter swing? So you kind of have to kind of play around with it and see what works best for you. I wish I had a really good solution for you to the problem, but unfortunately, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the I don't know the glasses industry. I don't know what all the options are. For all I know, there could be an option just as for glasses that would fix it, and I just don't know. But let's say there isn't an option with the glasses. What I would be doing is playing around with what works the best for you: shorter swing and being able to keep your eye on it, or longer swing and trying to reconnect with it. That's what I'd be trying to do. All right, so we got a few minutes left if we have any more questions. Like I said, we got 5 minutes or so left here. So Richard H says, I also have trifocals. I went and got a pair of distance focal glasses, and they work just great. Not good when it comes to writing writing on the scorecard, but great for all else. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Richard. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Hopefully Tom is still on here and you got to see that message. I appreciate you sharing, Richard, and sharing your experience. I'll keep that in mind myself. I'm sure someday I'll need to be getting the reading ones as well. But yeah, hopefully, thanks for sharing, Richard. So Tom B says, what is a good drill to keep from standing up out of posture? It really just depends on what the reason is why you're standing up out of posture. What I'd recommend doing is working through the 20-minute shadowing fix. That's going to cover the two main reasons that I see people stand up out of the posture. So there's two primary reasons. There could be a lot of reasons, but there's two primary reasons why people stand up out of their posture. One is because they're early releasing the club to get the club face square. So the face is open coming down, right? So the face is open when they come down. So they have to release the club to square it up. And if I release the club, I have to come up out of my posture, because if I release the club early, right, if I release it too early to square it up and I stay in my posture, I'm just going to throw it straight to the ground. So I have to kind of stand up out of it to make room for the club, right? So that's one reason. One primary reason why I see that. The 20-minute shadowing fix addresses that with getting a stronger grip or using the correct wrist angles. to get the club face, more square coming down. The other reason is coming down steep. And when we come down steep, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll have to come up out of our posture to get the club to shallow out later in the swing. So if I start down steep, right, well, look what happens. When I stand up out of my posture, look what the club does. Now the club is shallow, and now I can hit a functional shot. So a lot of times when I see people struggle with coming out of their posture, it's because they're doing it in an effort to hit a good shot, right? Or they're doing it in an effort to hit a shot in the direction that they're trying to. So their solution, they just need to find a different solution to their problem. The standing up is a solution to the problem of hitting a good shot. So if you can get the club shallowing out more in the start of the downswing, you get the club face more closed, that will eliminate the need to come up out of your posture. So the 20-minute shallowing fix is where I would recommend checking out, because those are the two biggest reasons I see. So if you want to check that out, click the instruction tab, then click the 20-minute shallowing fix. Now, if you wanted me to look at your swing, you could sign up for my online lessons, and I could look at your swing and tell you exactly why, and we can get down to it. But there's the only way for me to know the root cause would be to look at your swing to be able to know that. But outside of that, the 20-minute shallowing fix is going to be where you want to go. All right, so Carrie says, for shorter pitch shots, should the shaft be upright or leaning slightly forward? Is bottom of arc under ball or slightly in front of ball? So it's going to be slightly in front of ball. It should be the shaft should be leaning a little bit forward. We don't really ever want the shaft to be leaning backwards. The only scenario where that might be okay would be like a bunker shot, where we're basically trying to get a lot of loft and we're trying to get a lot of bounce. And we're, that can help the club to kind of glide through the sand a little bit. So if you're coming through and kind of going like that, but typically for any other shot, you want to have the shaft leaning forward a little bit at least, because that's going to allow things to be more stable. So if you think about it this way, there's a reason why we pull trailers and we don't back up trailers on the interstate, right? If you try to back up a trailer getting up to 65, 70 miles an hour, that's not going to be very stable. But if you pull a trailer, that will just line up. The mass of the trailer will line up with the force of the truck, right? Or whatever you're pulling it with. So that's the same thing in the golf swing. I want the club head to line up. I want my force to be ahead of the club head, the force of my hands on the handle here. So that way the club is falling in line with what I'm doing. If we put the club head in front of the hands, that will make things unstable. Not to mention the club will bottom out before the golf ball. And we do not want that to happen on chips. We want the club to bottom out after the golf ball. That's going to allow you to make ball first contact. Generally, actually, a little bit after the golf ball is what you want. Like a couple inches in front of the golf ball is generally what you're always going to want. All right. We'll go ahead and wrap it up right there. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Oh, great. Tom was able to see that message. Good. All right. So thanks, everybody, for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.